Okay, so my name is Genesis.
My name's Aleida.
And our topic was that we will be discussing is social markers within gender roles. So the first question I would like to pose to you all is, what do we learn about gender as kids? So as kids, we learn about this we learn about gender in a very unlimited concept, like in an unlimited way. So we learn as gender itself is an unlimited concept. It's really difficult to understand just for the fact that gender itself is very unlimited, and since it's an unlimited concept, we don't really fully understand it. So what we learn as kids are just pieces of the puzzle. It's not the full entire story. So when we learn about this, we have this one idea that we all start to believe. For example, I'm gonna put a scenario. There is 7 billion identities in the whole world, and we only divide those 7 billion identities into two: boys and girls. So obviously, boys are known to be as boys that like to play trucks, Legos. They like the color blue. And then their standards, their bar is so high that they have no limit. And then to girls, it's the other way around. So girls love pink. They grow up to be moms and leave the other jobs to dads. And if they want, if they don't want to be a housewife, they just become a teacher or a secretary, which are jobs that usually women always stay and plan to be because it's the overpowered field that women take place into. So then, as we grow up and there's 7 billion identities, we always have this idea that there's only boys and girls. But there's more to that. So what we'll be talking about today is how gender itself is something that we set standards towards, and then we only separate them into two categories, and those two categories really just identify our whole reality and that what comes forward.
So gender roles are pretty much based on stereotypes. So like she said before, boys like blue, girls like pink. That's something that we're used to growing up as little kids. There's other stereotypes, like when a woman's or a girl try to stand up and she tries to overcome the social barriers that we're faced. They're called bossy, and bossy has negative connotation to it. And other stuff, we're split into both, the male is supposed to be the boss, the head of the household, and the woman is supposed to be kind of more submissive, and if she's not, she's bossy. So that's also part of the negative connotation to it. So social marker within us. So Hugh MacLeod, he created a blog where he started the term of social marker. And a social marker, the definition is a prime form of social shorthand that people in society use to stake out the ecosystem they're occupying. So the ecosystem could either be society, media, and everything that we grow up with. So we grow up in society-based type of structure where anything we hear, we follow. Anything we do, we follow. Just easy. So the pink is the female. This consists of her daily. This is a male. So one of Aleida, a famous sex researcher, she decided to create the quote of nature doesn't draw a line for us between a male and a female. We actually draw the line on nature. So nature being society. So she says that it's us, the people, who create the social barriers between the stereotypes of a female should do this, a male should do this, and as we always follow society standards, we end up creating the barrier between the stereotypes.
As well, Aleida also furthers, with her quote, she furthers the idea that gender itself is just a category to, you can tell the difference between, obviously, a woman and a woman and a male, but it was never meant to be, males and males should do one thing and females should do another. So it just explains further how, we as a society, we form what we do and what we're supposed to do.
And the society structure of the stereotypes between a female and a male have come from biblical times. So we all know the story of Adam and Eve. There's other stories like Abraham and Sarah, Joseph and Mary, Zachariah and Elizabeth, Akia and Priscilla. Because we all know the story of Adam and Eve, I'm going to kind of move forward to Abraham and Sarah. So Abraham and Sarah are both husband and wife who decide to give their life to the Lord, and they're like everything He does, and they follow this spiritual umbrella of marriage, where the First of Peter, I believe it was, First of Peter 3:5-6 says that for wives is how the human day of the past adorned themselves. They put their hope in God and were subject to their husbands. So Sarah was the example there. Like, she's the one that subjects to her husband, and her husband is the head of the household. So it will be the spiritual umbrella of marriage, where Christ goes first, the husband after, and then the wife. So even till this day, we tend to kind of follow that structure within our household. Like, the man is supposed to be the one that kind of pays the bills, is in charge of everything. If you go out or anything, like, your mom would send you to your dad, like, oh, ask him for permission. But then the man has to ask, like, have as well the authority of the female. So he would kind of be like, oh, go ask your mom too. Like, if she says yeah, then okay. If not, then no. So it kind of goes of a mutual balance. But then
it's 8:45.
Has more of the dominance in the household. And then there's other stuff that biblical stereotypes that females should obey or follow, and males should also follow.
So, like, certain gender types at home, they're all, as she has already said, the umbrella is where Christ comes before anyone else, and then the male comes after, and then the female. But the only reason that is because, obviously, back in the day, Christ was the individual that everyone, like, believed in because of his miracles and stuff. But from there as well, even if you're not a religious person, obviously, because religion and family are two different concepts, the idea of family itself is that the man are superior than female, just for the fact that back in the day, Christ and obviously the religion formed that way, that men are supposed to be respected while the women as well are respected, but they're in like a less level than the man is.
So here we see traditional gender stereotypes that we face. So female is seen more of like talkative, gentle. She's more of like the domestic type, like she stays home, or she's home-oriented, she's submissive. And then for a male, we see that he's more active, he's more dominant, he's more of the person, like the tough person. And if you're not seen tough, you're seen like, oh, like in a Spanish phrase, like, oh, súbete los cajones, or then like los huevos, like to do something. And so if now you're not seen like machista, and machista for guys, a good thing for them, be like, oh, like he's seen like, I'm tough, I'm the man of the house.
Right. And then while a woman as well, if they were to be seen as like the strong one, like you're bossy, they'd be like, oh, you're rude, or why are you like that? Because women are always seen as, oh, you're supposed to be caretaking and nice. So that's why you can tell the difference between gender.
So both of our mentors, we want to go interview two people. I will talk to you guys about Delilah Jimenez. She's a therapist at Kendrick. Her whole workforce is that she kind of mentors students, and she kind of helps them reach the whole level of like better themselves. So she works a lot with different gender roles and stuff, and she focuses that in her job field. There's both females and males, but predominantly her workforce is more feminine because of the emotions. Females tend to kind of be more attentive to people and listen and kind of give them advice and everything, rather than a male who's not really, it's more kind of like a stereotype, like a male can't sit there and kind of just listen out and give good advice. It's more like a female role. So that's why 80% of the people females work in social work. And not just that, but when the male works in social work or any field like that, they only do like the temporary job of like the dirty work, like filling in for someone, hearing someone out, and then they move up to kind of more of like a manager or something. Like they go up to the bigger levels.
And then we interviewed Rachel Kagnoff. She's the board director of the Alliance, and then she's also the director of Stanford. So when we spoke to her, she's obviously a white individual. Although white individuals are seen as superior to other cultures, obviously as African Americans or Hispanics, she herself has experienced oppression of the woman. So, for example, when she worked at this one company, she was only 3 out of 200 individuals that were women. So there were only 3 women working in this organization. While she was working in this organization, she said that she had signed up to be of a certain position, but she was treated more as if she was a secretary. So the guys would be like, "Oh, can you go get me a coffee?" But like, why would the guy ask a lady to go for a coffee? But it's just because it seems that way. Like the woman is supposed to do everything for the man. So as she was oppressed in her organization, obviously it just shows how the men would overpower the woman. So as well, another way that she was overpowered was she was seen as bossy because she was trying to stand up for herself, but as well, only because there was only 3 women, and there obviously the rest were men, they never actually took the time to know their names because they said, oh, women look all the same. So you can't say that to someone because obviously she said herself they were from different cultures, they weren't the same. So it just shows how men in like back then, obviously because this organization that she worked for was like in the 1960s, it just shows how women since then have been oppressed and still in today's society still are the same
So these
way.
are just quick charts of the workforce and how there's still a gap between males and females in the workforce. And how she said about Rachel, like Rachel was she was 3 out of 200 in there, and well 1 of like 300, and she was 1 of 3 females in the whole workforce. So we see here statistics of how there's more part-time for females and full jobs for males.
Through our research, we read 2 books. We both read obviously both of the books, but we're going to talk about 2 different cultures: the African American culture and the Hispanic culture.
Should we keep going?
Yeah, I've already emailed people.
Okay, so in the Hispanic culture, the African American culture of the color purple, there's obviously it's about the African American culture and how women were seen as the person that's supposed to clean, take care of the kids, and do all of these things for the men. And there's this one character, Sally. She was an uneducated little girl. Her mother died, so she was supposed to take care of her little brothers, even her stepfather. But while all of that happened, she was even raped. So it just shows how women, like African Americans, were trying to find their identity, but they just couldn't because of the little education she had. Throughout the whole book, the color purple is written in. It's a series of letters, so it's like a diary. And throughout the diary, you can see that Sally herself is very uneducated because her dad told her that she could never go to school because she was too dumb for it. And there's a quote where she says, "The first time I got Big Pa took me out of school, he never cared that I love it. You too dumb to keep going to it." And then, so just in that little sentence, you just can see how uneducated she is. Because of the lack of education, she never could have overcame the standards that she was set to do. And on the other hand, there was another character. Her name was Sophia. She was the only character in the book that actually stood up for herself. She wanted to find her own identity. She wanted to find her status in her life. And then it just shows how, obviously, in the 19th century, it was very uncommon for a woman to stand up for themselves and never, actually listen to their husbands. So in The Color Purple, we discover how women themselves in the African-American culture have been oppressed. But then, as well, there was women that would stand up for themselves and to find their own gender identity.
So something I didn't mention about Delilah was that she said that she comes from a minority, and through education, she feels that has helped her overcome social barriers between the stereotypes of a female and a male. So in the Tortilla Curtain, we see how Delaney and Kyra are the opposite of the stereotypes in the book. So the author wants to portray how stereotypes, we shouldn't follow them, we should kind of overcome them. So Delaney is the wife, so she's more of the bread worker. How it says here, she kind of works for the money. She's more of the aggressive one in the household. And then the husband, Kyra is the wife, my bad. And Delaney, the husband, he's more of the domestic. He kind of stays home, and he even cheats on his wife and all of that. So there's already you can see how he's not the man of the house, but in other ways, he kind of still betrays his wife in the relationship by kind of having an affair. And then we see the other family, the minority, who is Candido in America. And Candido is kind of the one that works, and he's like, I should work for you, I should work for my wife. But America is like, we're poor, we need to do something about this. I need to work because you can't sustain me and yourself at the same time. So once she works, they find out that for minorities during the time that they came to America, the basic job that a woman could have was work in a factory. And there in the factory, she got raped by her boss. So it shows how even women are still oppressed in the job force even then. So we see how she had to stop working because her husband was like, you can't do that. I have to do the work because if you go to work, you get treated bad, or you shouldn't be treated that way.
From there, I believe our next slide was how we overcome the situation. The way you can overcome the situation in the most simple way is if you receive an education. As Delilah, our mentor, mentioned, she said that as a woman that is in the social work field, she used to be a woman that was obviously in a Hispanic family, and in a Hispanic family, you're supposed to be a woman that cleans, learns how to cook, and do all of these things, because when you grow up, you're supposed to find a husband to do all of those things for. So the main way we're trying to call to action is if you receive an education, and yes, there will be the counter argument that obviously there are individuals that can't obtain an education because of the lack of resources. There is a way that you can obviously attain a job and learn and like set your place in society in order to like overcome like only the man is supposed to work and you're just supposed to stay home and work and like clean and stuff. So we want you guys to get an education. Obviously, if you stand up and like be like, no, like this is my place in society, I'm not going to be treated this way. And if you're assertive towards whoever is oppressing you, you'll be able to like show that women are bossy, but this bossiness is going to identify who I really am.
Yeah. So we want to leave you guys off with a rhetorical question, which is
So is our gender identity our fate? So obviously gender is a very complicated idea because obviously gender is penises and vaginas, but like obviously it's not just that, because women need to find their place in society as well as men, but women themselves have been oppressed. So we just want you guys to like
stay up with anything a man can do, a woman can do, anything a woman can do, a man can do.